Welcome to Mindset Mastery Moments, the best growth mindset podcast, recognized by Million Podcasts and ranked as a top mindset podcast by FeedSpot. We're proud to be in the top 1% on Listen Notes. Join Dr. Alisa White as we explore powerful insights and strategies to elevate your mindset. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to Mindset Mastery Moments. I'm your host, Dr. Alisa, the number one mindset disruptor, and today's episode is not for beginners, but listen, we want you to listen in too. This conversation is one for high performers and high achievers, the ones who've already built something real, but you feel stuck because you're sometimes lazy, stuck because of a lack of strategy. And sometimes you're even feeling like you're stuck because you're not capable. Or maybe you're stuck because the version of you that created your current success is not the version that's required to scale it. And I know those things are uncomfortable to admit, but guess what? We understand. Because most high performers respond to discomfort by doing more hours, more effort, more pressure, more. And you're asking me, how do I know? I'm guilty of this too. But what happens when working harder stops working? My guest today has coached Olympic athletes, Fortune 500 CEOs, and billionaires, people who don't lack discipline, intelligence, or even access. And after 45,000 plus coaching sessions, he uncovered something most people never realize. It's not strategy that breaks people at higher levels, it's identity. When identity doesn't evolve, success becomes very heavy. And the higher you go, the more it costs. Today, we are talking about why high performers stay stuck, why identity, not strategy, determines how far you can scale. We're going to talk about the dark side of success nobody ever warns us about, and the 5 freedoms required to grow without losing your life in the process. This is not motivational fluff. This is mastery. Let me introduce my guest today, Trevor McGregor. He went from losing literally everything in his late 20s, financially, emotionally, nearly losing his marriage, to rebuilding his life through real estate. Then something extraordinary happened. He was personally selected by Tony Robbins to serve as one of his top coaches, where for over 5 years, he coached Olympic athletes, Fortune 500 CEOs, and billionaires. After leaving that role, Trevor founded Trevor McGregor International, where for more than a decade, he's helped elite performers create quantum leaps by transforming identity first. He's completed over 45,000 individual coaching sessions. My God. And his work focuses around helping high performers scale exponentially without burnout, without broken relationships, without losing themselves in the process. Trevor, you are a superhero, and you should have not capes, but wings. Welcome to Mindset Mastery Moments. I personally am excited to glean from your wisdom, your knowledge, and your lessons today. We're so happy to have you. Tell us who you are, what you do in your own words, and what's your why behind why you do it.
Dr. Alisa, that was beautiful, and I am excited to be here with you as you with me, so it's mutual. And first off, kudos to you for the work you do, and your show is phenomenal. The listeners get so much goodness from you and your guests, where, I am literally cut from a very similar cloth as you because, after going through so many peaks and valleys, so many ups and downs, I think we all learn at some point that mindset mastery is the key to success. And so again, my name is Coach Trevor McGregor. I am the founder and CEO of Trevor McGregor International. And Trevor McGregor International has got a bunch of divisions, but predominantly coaching, consulting, speaking, real estate, publishing, and then angel investing. So my wife, Lisa, and I would do a lot of different things on this beautiful blue planet. But the number one thing that drives us is contribution, right? When we get up every day, we're asking ourselves, how can we make this world a better place? Not only for ourselves and our family and our community, but for other people. And really, after doing over 45,000 coaching sessions, and yes, that's an actual statistic, and you'll hear my voice is raspy, right? And after seeing, Olympic athletes, millionaires, multimillionaires, billionaires, Fortune 500 executives, entrepreneurs, I've really seen what allows people to really, really, stay stuck and what really allows
Mm.
people to explode with extraordinary results, Alyssa. So that's a little bit about, who I am and where I'm at today.
We are so honored again to have you and to listen to you share so much wisdom. Being a coach myself, I don't know how many hours I have, but I know 45,000 is a lot. And here's the thing, when
Yes.
you are as passionate as you are, it's not just churning out and getting people in and getting them out. These are lives that were transformed, and this is energetic transference that you have poured in. So it is, to me, coaching is it's very similar to teaching, but it goes deeper because it's more spiritual work at times than anything. So let's just get into your mindset and how you have mastered your own journey and been able to make such an impact in the world. I want to start where most people don't like to start. Let's go back to before success. You've been very open about losing almost everything in your late 20s. Take us back there to that moment. What was actually breaking in that season? Was it finance, confidence, or I'm pretty sure you're probably going to tell us identity? Maybe all of it.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting story and I'll get into it. So again, back in my 20s, like most people, I went to college, studied business, ended up working in a hospitality company and became the executive director of operations and kind of grew through the ranks. And then when I was 29 years old, Alyssa, they came to me and said, "Look, we're going to have a huge expansion in 5 major cities. We would love for you to come in and be an investor with us." And I thought, wow, this is my chance to, take some money, put it into a business, and hopefully, grow it and start my entrepreneurial journey. So that's what I did. I cashed in all of my 401k. I took all of my savings, and I even borrowed against my parents' family home well into six figures. And I took all that money and I put it into this expansion for this hospitality company. And for the first couple of years, things went well until my partner came to me one day and he said, "You know what? We're expanding too fast. We're bleeding cash. We're having a real tough time maintaining what we've set out to do. And if we don't do something different, we're going to lose it all." And ultimately, to make a long story short, that's what played out. So there I was in my early 30s where I lost all of that money I put into that expansion. All of it was gone, Alyssa. And it was the lowest point in my life. And I didn't even know what I was going to do to rebound it and pay off all of those loans. And especially tell my parents that, you know what, we could lose the family home. And that caused a
Wow.
huge rift in my health. It caused a huge rift with my
Yes.
wife because I was married with two small children at the time. And I really didn't know what I was going to do because my identity and my mindset was truly in the gutter.
Wow. Oh, yeah. I can definitely understand that. But here's the thing, of course, that I talk about the entrepreneurial mindset, and that was not lacking. Obviously, really, it was not lacking even in that dark moment. Is you were willing to risk it all for what you believed in, and it
Yes.
does. But there's the part that's the part I feel like we don't talk a lot about is that at the end of the day, we're still humans. We're not robots with an entrepreneurial mindset and the dedication we have. So when you cause the harm, quote unquote, to your family, that's weighing on you in a way that no one you don't even have words to express. Sometimes it's missing the events that are happening in the family more so that sometimes is can be just as stressful as wagering the home. And we've seen movies of some of our great, entrepreneurs in the world, how many relationships fall apart because of their commitment and dedication to the dream. And just recently, Trevor, one of my colleagues who is a very awesome thought leader said, I can feel this next version of me coming through. I'm going to that next level with my work. And my biggest fear is some of the relationships that I will you lose. And I was like, what relationships are you
Yes.
thinking you're going to lose? You don't have very many left. And my colleague was like, no, every time I go up to another level, it comes with a sacrifice. So if you want, I would love to hear you respond to that. So someone who is listening and heard your story and they might be in that position right now where they are quote unquote risking it all to pursue their passion and their dream and what they feel they're put on this earth to do, what would you say to them right now about
Well,
mindset
it's
or identity in that moment?
Absolutely, Alyssa. And that's really, where the conversation starts. It's because our identity is the strongest force within us, right? And at that
Mm,
point, I felt like a loser. I had guilt. I had
mm,
shame. I thought, my goodness, I've, dug this, into a hole and I don't know how I'm going to get out of it. So just like your colleague, you know what? We have what's called the law of polarity in identity. Sometimes we're a loser and we're guilty and we're blaming and shaming and justifying and pointing fingers. But that's not what the human spirit is all about. It's about realizing there's another level of identity that we can ascend to. It's the warrior, right? It's the gladiator inside of us that, what, when we fall down, we got to get up and dust ourselves off and say, not how do I respond, but who do I need to be to move forward.
mm.
So whether it's your colleague or whether it's my story, that's really what it's all about. It's really understanding that, God or the universe or source or infinite intelligence puts us through a lot of ups and downs. Like I said, a lot of peaks and valleys. But for the committed, there's always a way to move forward, and it starts with your identity.
It's your identity. Ooh, I can't wait for when we get into that. But let's fast forward a little bit to you being selected by Tony Robbins, one of the most elite environments in the world, I would say. What did he
Yes.
see in you at that moment that you hadn't fully named yet for yourself?
Well, it's a great question. And it's really, where I can pick up that story because when I was at the lowest of the low, again, I didn't know what I was going to do. And my wife said, Trevor, you need help. You need to find somebody that has already been, through what you've done. And I said, yeah, but what kind of person is that? And she says, I think you need a coach. And I said, a
Mm,
coach? What's a coach? She says, it's somebody that can help you with your mindset and with strategy. And I didn't have any idea of what a coach was or how much it would cost or any of that stuff. But I
right.
started my quest and I found a coach that was absolutely unbelievable. And he said to me, Trevor, what's happened to you is unfortunate, but you're still a young man. You got to get up, dust yourself off, and find a way to keep on keeping on. And I said to him, I said, thank you, but I don't know how I'm going to pay back all of these failed loans. And he said one thing to me that changed my life. He said, have you ever thought of investing in real estate? And I said,
Hmm.
real estate? First off, I don't know how to make money in real estate. Second of all, I have no money. And he laughed and he says,
Right.
well, you can borrow other people's money, buy a property, fix it up, and either rent it or sell it or refinance it. And Alyssa, my back was up against the wall. And that's what I did. I went out and started by
Mm,
buying one little townhouse. And that was a good experience. So I took the money out of that and bought my first duplex. And then I moved on
mm,
to refinance that and started to buy fourplexes and more fourplexes. And in just 2.5 years, I had made enough money to pay off all of my failed loans, including my parents. And I still had a beautiful cash flowing real estate portfolio on the top of that. And that's when people started coming to me saying, Trevor, how are you buying these properties? Can you coach me and teach me how to do this? And I said, sure, let's sit down for coffee. I'll show you my blueprint. And that's when the coaching bug bit. That's when other people started to take my blueprint and go out there. And that around that exact time, that's when I got the call from the Tony Robbins team saying, look, Tony's looking to hire 20 coaches and we'd like you to consider putting in an application. And I thought, well, I have no formal coaching experience, but, I'll humor it. And Alyssa, they got 500 applications for 20 spots.
Hello, disruptors. You're tuned to Mindset Mastery Moments with yours truly, Dr. Alisa. I just want to thank you for keeping our podcast a top 1% podcast worldwide. We encourage you to like, share, subscribe, leave us a comment wherever you're listening or watching to this episode. Let us know that these episodes are reaching you and it's helping you with your transformation and your growth journey. Remember, your mindset is the key to your success. Said is something many high performers miss. How early survival patterns get rewarded until they don't. You rebuild through real estate, which on the surface looks like a strategy and a win. But what was that internal shift that was happening for you at the same time?
Well, that's a great question. And we're really about going from victim to victor, right? Because if we
Mm-hmm.
stay in the mindset of a victim, we're going to make victim choices. We're going to make victim decisions. And my coach was instrumental in saying, you know what? you can move beyond anything because the past doesn't represent the future unless you live there. And so as he started to say that
Mm.
was the Trevor that was showing up, this is a different Trevor. You're now in the present. And in the present is where we create what he called the predictable future. And that's exactly what I did. I had to reinvent my beliefs, my values,
Mhm.
my rules, and condition my mindset to be able to move forward. And that's what allowed me to get out of the little, rabbit hole I was in and start climbing back up the mountain.
Right. Wow. So that is what would lead you to that moment where you're sitting now and you are being selected by Tony Robbins and his team, one of the most elite environments in the world. What did he see in you at that moment that you hadn't fully named yet for yourself?
Oh, that's a great question. And again, I was really nervous. I mean, here I was in, my late 30s at that stage and really, 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 uncertain about could I coach high performers? Could I coach, millionaires? Could I coach multimillionaires? Could I coach those
Mhm.
billionaires and Olympic athletes? But what
Mhm.
Tony believed was I was really good with business, good with people, good with real estate. And, when you think about your belief in what life is all about, Tony really looks for people that aren't, full of ego, aren't full of, well, look at me, I'm the
Mm.
best. He really looks for people that are selfless and that are really built from a place of growth and contribution. And so really they saw that I was, somebody that was a giver, somebody that really wanted as much for everyone else as I did for myself and my family. And I think that as I started to really, unleash myself in Robbins, I became one of his elite master platinum coaches. And I really did get a lot of really amazing people that were, successful or, looking to knock on the door of success. But as I measure backwards, Alyssa, every single one that I ever coached, the reason they started to have transformation and breakthroughs was from shifting their identity.
Their identity. So you said something that I absolutely agree with, and that it really rattles people sometimes. You say most high performers don't stall because of strategy or a broken strategy. They stall because of what you just mentioned to us, their identity. You said that their identity hasn't caught up with their success. Oh my goodness. Mic drop. I felt that
That's it.
so deeply for myself and with so many people I've worked with coaching, and I've also just looking at some of my colleagues. The identity has not caught up with their success. Break that down for us. We are ready to dive into this thing.
Oh, yes, let's get her going because there's a great quote that I use, and that is that you'll never outperform your identity, right? So if you think that I'm as good as it gets, or this is the all the education I have, or this is all I'm cut out for, you're missing the opportunity to realize that there are no limits, right? And I find that
Mhm.
most people are playing a game to win. Where I ask people, what if we played a different game? What if we played the game of seeing how far you could go, seeing how far you could help humanity, seeing how far you could stretch? And it takes, again, a big shift in your beliefs, your
Mhm.
values, your rules, your state, your identity, the standards that you hold for yourself, and all of that must precede the strategy. Otherwise, you end up sabotaging yourself. And I think the listeners all know where we've got good intentions. We really want to go out there and do something in our business or with our body or with
Mhm.
our marriage or with our parenting or with
Mhm.
anything. But if you don't really think that, success is 80% mindset and 20%
Mhm.
mechanics or your
Mm.
strategy, you're going to sabotage. What do you think of that?
Oh my goodness. So here's a scenario because this happens a lot. There is sort of where you were, your story is that's it. A lot of us hit that decision. You were just going after your dream. Some people, it's just an unfortunate thing. Maybe they got burned in a fire. Obviously,
Yeah.
we connect identity with that very quickly because we don't look the same. But for some people, Trevor, it's a divorce, right? The one where, like for me, my story. I always talk to audiences across the globe about coming from a marriage at age 34 where From the time of 17, I was with my ex-husband, and then we got married 5 years later. At age 22, I was, and we had planned a life together. We had planned to for kids. We built a home, all these things. So I created a identity and a roadmap for the rest of my life with all this in tow. Now, boom, at age 34, I have to adjust to who am I, is what I always say, now that this is no longer, he is no longer. And really, all my future plans are sort of no longer. There's that identity, right? And then there's the other
Very.
person who had a very successful career and they got laid off from a job, another attack at identity. Walk us through your identity framework and help us understand maybe the definition of identity on those terms. Because a lot of times people think identity based on how you look, what you do. Tell us how you define identity and walk us through what it looks like pivoting in those moments.
Well, I know your story and I've been listening to your show and you have such an amazing show. And I think we got to back up to something you said on a previous show, which is how many thoughts do we have a day, right? Like how many thoughts
Mm,
do we have? And there's, 50, 60, 80,000, different scientists
yes.
say there's different amounts, but think of
Yes.
how many thoughts and feelings and actions come from who we believe we are. So when you think about it, there are three modalities of time that also go into our identity because we have our past self, we have our present self, and we have our future self. And
Mm,
so when you get married at that young age and you're really looking at the future, you're conditioning a belief in the neural networks of your brain about what life is going to look like being married for 2, 3, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And then guess what? The universe has a sly way of, transitioning us to something different. And when we go through it at the time, whether it's a divorce or a fire or a job loss or, the loss of an aging parent, or we go through COVID or whatever it is, that rattles us. It rattles the human spirit. It rattles the soul because we are not matching up with the vision that we had for our life, our marriage, our business, our body, or what we really want. And that's when we start to, go back into that rabbit hole going, what's wrong with me? Why
mm,
didn't it work out? Why did God do this to me? And when you
mm,
think about divorce in the US, we know statistically that roughly 54% of couples get divorced. That's more than, one out of two. And most people are conditioned by society to say that it's wrong, when in fact, maybe it was exactly what the universe wanted for you to have an
mhm.
experience in marriage, but to realize that you weren't meant to be with that person for the rest of your life.
Of your life.
Same thing with a
Yes.
job loss. When somebody goes through a job loss, obviously there's the big, identity around money and how am I going to put food on the table and pay the bills? But I often say that God's rejection is your protection and that
Protection.
you've got a chance
Yes.
to go out there and reinvent yourself, start a company, invest in real estate, get into e-commerce, start a YouTube channel. I'm telling you, that's the beautiful thing about being a high performance coach is for the committed, there's always a way. But you got to get past the past and the present to step into yourself, your future self, to create that predictable future and start moving towards it.
Oh, yes. So tell us, this explain to us because I want to understand this because I feel like in my circle we talk about it so often. The part where you say identity hasn't caught up with your success. What does that look like? What does that look like? Because I feel that it's like it's something you just know what you're talking about, but at the same time, it's like tell us what you mean by it because it's huge. That's huge.
Well, it's really fascinating to really unpack it and think about, what people believe success is, right? And if you read the book,
Mm.
Think and Grow Rich, which is one of the greatest best-selling books of all time, in
Yes,
that
I
book,
agree.
Napoleon Hill talks about, you know, a man becomes what he thinks about. And ultimately, when he was literally writing the book, he was fascinated by why people, have a linear path to success and some people have what we call a quantum path to success, and they're able to create success very quickly. Well, it all boils back to the people that are really, willing to tear down that identity regardless of how hard they hit the ceiling. So let's say you have a bit of success and you go up, inevitably you'll hit some sort of plateau or ceiling and you'll start to come down. Whereas high performers go, you know what, before I slide all the way back down into the valley, who would I need to be? How would I need to think? What would I need to believe to really start my journey up the next mountain? Because it's almost like, your journey, doctor, when you think of all the mountains you've climbed to get your PhD, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you
Mm-hmm.
really go, now what? And you can either,
Mm-hmm.
take a break and slide down this side of the mountain, or you see another mountain and you want to go climb it. And then from that peak, you
Yes.
see another mountain. And I think that that's what people forget, is that we're always navigating the mountains, and mountains have
Yes.
peaks and mountains have valleys. But my belief is we don't have to go up and down in a linear way. We can go up and then maybe a little down and then up and up, in terms of what
Right.
it is that you want. Again, in your career, in your finances, in your marriage, in your health, in your parenting, pick your category. Because I'm telling you, if you really look backwards at what stops most people from achieving what they want, it's they write the story to lose in their identity instead of writing the story to win.
Whoo! That is a mic drop. Writing the story to lose instead of writing it to win, because we are writing our story. One of the certifications I took in my coaching certification years ago was that story. What do you call it? I think it's a story writing. And again, that was connected to white mindset. It wasn't about writing stories. It's about the scripts we write for ourselves and our lives. And that leads right back to mindset. And I think what you're saying, or I believe, not think, I believe it's so important, because what I see is, especially with leaders and entrepreneurs and professionals, it's when growth slows, we assume that they need more tactics, we need more certifications, we need more frameworks, we need more hustle. But what they're actually doing is protecting an old identity while asking for new results, right?
Right.
Would you say that's
Spot on.
fair?
I would give you 1,000 points for that, doctor, but I would also say that people forget that there's a reason for every season, right? There's a reason for every
Ooh,
season.
come on.
Sometimes we're in summer and it's really fun and the sun is shining and it's like everything's going great. And then we go into a period of fall, right? Where it's a little, cooler outside and we're uncertain. And then some people go into what they call their winter. And I'm telling you, a lot of people
Mhm.
get cold in winter or freeze in winter, where I put on, skis and go snowshoeing and then build a snowman and a snow fort and I make it really fun, knowing that then spring is just around the corner. So part
Yes.
of it is to really identify what season are you in and ask what season are you really believing you're in, right? Because for
Mhm.
me, even though there's summer, fall, winter, spring, I believe that for anyone that is really, really committed to going out there and making more impact and making more income, that you can
Yes.
do it all year long. You can do it for 3 years,
Yes.
5 years, 10 years. And I'm proof of that myself, because if we go back to my story, I was in an awful place and I didn't have a clue how I was going to move forward until I shifted into that future self, until I found a
Mm,
coach that believed in me, until I, got resourceful, right? Because I was broke. I had to go find other money to put into this real estate. But I always come back to the fact that you're either interested in moving forward or you're committed to moving forward. And
I
I
agree.
believe that you and I are cut from a similar cloth, where we're not
Yes,
just
we are.
interested, we're committed.
We're committed, and it looks very, very different. And I tell individuals, it's not even how bad do you want it, because I know a lot of people who want things.
Yeah.
Right? And so where people get frustrated is because effort goes up sometimes, but expansion doesn't. So let's talk about the dark side of scaling. This is the part where nobody wants to post it on social media and talk about it too much. You've coached people at those highest levels. What happens internally when someone actually hits that next level of where they wanted to go? What is that experience? What does that look like?
Well, again, I think that it's different, strokes for different folks. But for some people, I've never met a high performer that hasn't failed before they've
Mm,
succeeded. right?
Fail forward
So I
fast.
think a lot of people think that it happens in a straight line. Here's where I am, here's where I want to go, and there's a straight line to success. Well, I'm telling you, it's more like a roller coaster, right? You're going around, there's a loop de loop, you think you're going to fall out on your head. And then ultimately, you start moving towards it when you're doing the right things in the right order at the right time and for the right reasons. I'll give you an example. I had a client, his name is Joe Fairless. He lives in Cincinnati, Ohio. And when he came to me as a client, he owned 4 single family homes in Texas, and they were worth about $65,000 a piece in the small town. And Joe came to me and he says, Trevor, every time a tenant moves out, I have to repaint it or refloor it or do something with it. And I said, well, you know what? Maybe we need to shift you onto something bigger. Have you ever thought of buying apartment buildings? And Joe said, apartment buildings? I don't know how to buy apartment buildings. But we went out there and we conditioned his belief system that says if he can buy a single family home, he could buy a 50-unit apartment building. Well, fast forward to today, Joe now has $2.7 billion in assets under management. 2.7 billion. And that came from stacking success on success. And then he'd have a little bit of failure, and then he'd climb back up and have a little bit more success, and then surround himself with the right people, the right tools, the right systems. And I think for anybody that has a vision for what they want in their business and their life, you don't have to, say I want $1 billion, but what do you really, really, really want? And what would you have to believe not to settle until you absolutely grasp it? So back to you on that. Any thoughts around what it takes for people to really see that it might not be the thing that you're doing now, but to reinvent yourself and really put something on your heart and then move towards it?
Mm, that's huge. That's so huge because success doesn't just amplify strengths, it really does amplify your cracks as well, right?
Yes.
Relationships get strained, health takes a hit,
Yes.
joy gets postponed. Why do you think so many high achievers and high performers feel lonely or more pressured when they get higher as they get higher or the higher they go?
It's a great question, and I think that it's very, very common for, us all to really look at what ascension is. For people that are
Mm,
successful, they get up early. They might stay up late. They might invest in a coach. They might listen to podcasts. They might go to Tony Robbins seminars. They might read books. Whereas everyone else is sitting there watching Netflix or, scrolling through
mhm,
social media. Not that there's anything wrong with a little bit of that, but I can literally tell the ability of someone to be successful by where they spend their time. And that's why when I start working with people, we'll do a time audit. And it's a very
mm,
simple process where you literally take a look at what you're doing. And then from there, we take a look at what we call your ZOG or your zone of genius. Because just like your zone of genius, doctor, is communication and mindset and coaching and really, unleashing the human spirit, similar to mine, for other people, they're really good with numbers, or they're really good
mhm,
with technology, or they're really good with people, or they're really good at, something that, maybe wouldn't be my zone of genius. So I think the
right.
universe creates a vehicle for all of us where we can find a way to meet what we call the 6 human needs. And the 6 human needs, again, is a body of work from Tony where we all have the need for number one, which is certainty. Number two, we need variety. Number three, we need to feel significant. Number four, we need connection and love. But five and six are really the needs of the spirit, where we must grow. And number six, we must contribute. So if you think of anyone that's ever achieved anything of something amazing, or they were lit up, or they were inspired, it was because they were meeting those 6 human needs in the pursuit of it.
Oh, that makes me excited.
Yes,
I
me
talk
too.
about that all the time. I believe we overlook the need to pay attention to human need, both for ourselves and if we desire to serve. Because I don't know. I say people say, "Oh, I'm a lone wolf. Oh, I don't trust anyone. I'm just here to make my money. If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense." All these other things. Listen, no matter what you do, you are here serving human needs. I
Yeah.
don't. So if you want, and that's the secret to marketing, that's the secret to product creation, that's the secret to content creation, and that's a whole nother episode that you got to come back on here to talk. But you're
Yes.
teaching, you also teach something. I believe that this is where the true mindset mastery becomes non-negotiable, because if you don't lead your inner world, success will expose it. And so if you're
That's right.
ignoring your needs, or you're ignoring the needs of the group or the niche or the people you serve, whether you're running a company or you're an entrepreneur, you're lacking. So you teach something that you call the 5 freedoms. And I love this because it reframes growth without glorifying burnout. If you can, Coach Trevor, walk us through these freedoms at a high level.
Well, absolutely, doctor. And I think it's fascinating after doing as many calls as I have and failing in business and succeeding in business and buying real estate and working for Tony Robbins. I really distilled it down to, something that I call the 5 freedoms. And the 5 freedoms are really, what do people want? What are they really satiating for? What are they really craving? And I'll give them to you the way I teach them because I think that the listener can really ask themselves, are these things that I want? Right. And the very first thing we talk about is financial freedom. Right. Let's get that money thing handled. And let's all remember that money's not a dirty word. But if you have money flowing to you, it's because money is a byproduct of helping other people. So if you want to make more money, if you want to move towards financial freedom, you've got to ask yourself, how can I make an impact that leads to income? Right. And I want everybody to realize that they have an equal playing field to go out there and add value in their zone of genius. And again, make that impact in income and grow their net worth to epic proportions. Does that?
And I love that you call it the 5 freedoms. I think again, it's one of those things that you've put together so well that we miss. I believe that those the 6 and then the 5, which now brings us to 11. If we tap into
Yes.
that, like seriously, just I'm done. Like I'm like, okay, let me dig in on these. And I believe that many of us who, like we spoke about, who seasons don't affect output and input, it's because we understand what those 6 are and what our 5s are, 6 and 5s. So for those who are like, what 6? Can you give us a repeat of those 6 needs again so we can marry these 11 principles and really zone in on them in our own lives as we do reflections after this episode?
Well, sure. Let me finish the other 4 for the 5 freedoms, and then I'll tie all 11 together. Because if we
I
move from
love it.
financial freedom to number 2, that's time freedom, right? We're not meant to
Mm,
grind. We're not meant to work 70 hours a week. We're not meant to, go to bed exhausted. And as you start to move towards financial freedom and you start making more money, now you can buy back some of your time. You can delegate, or you can hire an assistant, or you can leverage AI today. There's so many ways to do it. So if number 1 is moving towards financial freedom, number 2 is moving towards time freedom, which then takes us to number 3, which is what I call lifestyle and location freedom, right? Lifestyle is, what are your hobbies? What do you love to do? What would you do away from work where you fill up your cup because you're doing something you're passionate about? Is it art? Is it music? Is it, playing golf? Is it playing the guitar? Is it traveling and having a staycation? Or maybe even going across the pond and traveling internationally? Because I'm telling you, most people that I've coached and you've coached really want more financial freedom, more time freedom, and more location and lifestyle freedom.
yes.
However, 4 and 5 are the most amazing for me because number 4, doctor, is what we call impact freedom. And impact
Yes.
freedom is when you've got the financial, the time, and the ability to go anywhere and do something that is your work, your legacy, your inspiration. Maybe you want to, help with education or healthcare or clean water or,
Mhm.
whatever is on your heart. But I believe that the first 3 freedoms help us do more of 4. And then last but not least, number 5 is relationship freedom. Relationship freedom. It means that you remove yourself from any energy vampires or anyone that is pulling you down to get into different rooms and surround yourself with the Dr. Alisas and the Trevor McGregors of the world that do nothing but, lift you up. So to recap the 5 freedoms, if you walk down any street in America and you ask anybody, would you like more financial freedom, time
They're gonna
freedom,
say yes.
location freedom, right? With lifestyle, impact, and relationships, you're going to get a big yes from everybody you talk
Yes.
to. What do you think?
That is exactly what we're all pursuing, regardless if we say it's a different way or not. And one of that, before we talk about our sixes again, what is we're saying that your identity, in essence, is part is what is of course mindset, but identity comes from how you're setting your mind. And so that is
Correct.
what can either catapult you into going through your freedom framework and living the life of your dreams, or is where you keep getting stuck because of identity. Is that what I'm hearing from you? That's what your message is to us.
1,000%. Again, it's like that old Henry Ford quote, if you think you can't, you can't. And if you think you can, right? But sometimes you're going to get challenged. You're going to get stuck, but that's part of the journey. I mean, I often say this, doctor, that business is a vehicle for growth, right? And if we're going to get
Mm,
into business, whether we're working a W-2 job or we start a side hustle or an entrepreneurial something, again, you're going to be challenged. So do you see it as a
yes.
problem or do you see it as a challenge? Because here's a big soundbite. I believe that every problem is a problem of perspective. And it's really true.
Mm,
Is this the
mm,
end or is it a beginning? It's kind of like your divorce. Was it the end of things or was God opening a new door for you to walk through for new experiences and new relationships? And I think a lot of people label things as good or bad, right or wrong. And I would just suspend, you know what, that we all have our own contract with God. We all have our own journey here. And some people have it way worse than you, and some people have it way better than you. But at the end of the day, you know, what are you going to do to live your best life from here forward? That's the major question. And again, it's going back to the 6 human needs. Where can you find more certainty? Right? Because certainty is about being, confident and showing up and believing that if I do this, this equals that. But you know what? We need the polar opposite of that too, which is variety. Are you
mm,
going to new cities? Are you going to new restaurants? Are you, you know, going to read new books in the bookstore? Because again,
mhm.
we're creatures who need, certainty, but we also need variety. The third one is that need for significance. That's to feel unique or important or special. Some get it from being a doctor, some get it from being a coach, some people get it from being a nurse or a real estate investor,
The
a
teacher.
parent, right? A
Mhm.
church minister, a teacher. God bless all the teachers. But ultimately, what are you ascending into next? Is there a higher version of you, or do you need to reinvent yourself to feel like you're significant? And a lot of people don't feel significant. They say, here's what's
Mhm.
wrong with me. Here's what's wrong with my bank account. Here's what's wrong with my spouse or my misbehaving kids.
Yes.
Right. So we got to be very careful that we don't, sabotage what we need for those first 3 because we need certainty, variety, and significance. Number 4
Yes.
is connection, connection and love. And I think since, COVID, people have really turned to their cell phones. They've turned to their computers. They've gone inward instead of
Mhm.
outward. And that's why,
Mhm.
I'm a big believer we've got to return to finding like-minded people like yourself to engage in conversation, have lunch, have dinner, go for coffee, because it's really
Yes.
through the human spirit that we connect with each other. Number
Mhm.
5, again, my favorite one is growth. I mean, we're like plants. If a plant isn't growing, ultimately, what's happening to it? It's
It's
dying.
dying.
And we don't want to die. We don't even want to just survive. It's people that listen to your show that want to thrive. And it is
Mhm.
available if you condition your identity to believe it is. And then the last one, again, number 6. And again, the secret to living is giving through the concept of contribution.
Contribution.
Contribution. How can we make ourselves better, our partners better, our families better, our communities better, our businesses better, our clients' experiences better? Because ultimately, there's 2 laws that govern most things on this planet. And my favorite law is the law of expansion, where
Expansion.
most people get into contraction, right? And
Mm.
contraction is playing small, Whereas expansion is reinventing your identity, your beliefs, your values, your rules, your 6 human needs to move more of the 5 freedoms. And again,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's available to anyone who's not interested, not just committed, but what I call defiantly committed. What do you think?
Ooh, defiantly committed. I love that. Wow. Let me ask you this. Which one of these freedoms do you see high achievers and high performers resisting the most?
It's a great question, and I'm going to give it to you in a bit of a different way because most people are chasing money, right? Most people are really getting up and all they can think about is money, 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 money. And that's okay, but that's not what we're here to do, right? We're really here for number 4 and 5. We're really here to make an impact. And if you really lean into impact through your ZOG or your zone of genius, you will make more income, right? And then number 5 is life's too short not to have great relationships, right? So what I'm talking about is really when people get up in the morning, all they can think about is money, money, money. And that's really not the full reason why we're here. We're really here for impact, right? And so when you go out there and you make more impact, you're going to make more income. But then that, 5th one, the relationships is really where the vitality comes from. Because when you surround yourself with like-minded people that are on a mission, people that want more for humanity, right? It just absolutely feeds the soul. And I think that's what a lot of people were missing through COVID was not being able to surround themselves with like-minded people that elevate your emotions. Because when you get around the right people, you feel more joy, you feel more possibility, you feel more love, you feel the things that we need. And ultimately, that's why I love, bringing in the 6 human needs with the 5 freedoms. What do you think, doctor?
Yes, I absolutely agree with that at 100% because I that's why I have a formula, Coach Trevor, that's called the triple I: impact, influence, income, and I have income at the last piece because impact comes through you being so clear and committed to consistently showing up in your full purpose and doing what it is you're called to do. And then secondly, you will start to influence the way people think and how they do what they do, more or less now stepping into their own full body embodiment of their purpose. And now because you've created that influence, now you have the income coming through. And income comes, you see, income, a lot of times we only think of financial income, but I feel it's an income of abundance where you do have
Yes.
plenty of finance. And then those 5 freedoms that you talk about becomes a big part of your life. You get to choose where you are, what you do, when you do it, who you do it, how you do it, and again, where you do it. So you're able to enjoy the 5 freedoms now because you have an abundance of income where finance is only one of those incomes, right? You just have
That's
abundance
so
in
good.
every area.
What I love about you saying that, Alisa, is it's absolutely true, right? And I feel there's 2 types of income. There's the first one called monetary income, which is us making
Mhm.
those little, pieces of paper with green ink on it that go into our bank
Mhm.
account. But the other one you remind me of is called psychic income. And psychic income is
Mm.
just a word for the feeling of how you bring money to you, knowing that it's
Wow, I
abundant,
love
just
that.
like oxygen. I mean, when's the last time you walked into a room where there was a party and you started gulping air because you thought they would run out of oxygen in that room? Well, you've never done that. And money works the
No.
same way. Money is absolutely available to anyone that breathes it in and isn't greedy or isn't, underhanded. Or you've got to really understand the laws of money, like the law of compensation, the law of circulation, the
Yes.
laws of abundance. And I know you know a lot of these laws and you teach a lot of these as well, but it's also part of our ability to condition our identity to work with the money laws so that we don't have to
Yes.
grind to make it, but we literally attract it. What do you think of that?
Ooh, I love that. Now I have to go. I love that. I'm gonna look up more about. You said the psychic. What is it? Psychic of income.
Psychic income. It's psychic
Psychic
income. It's the
income.
feeling and the emotions we have around money. And most people, are really repelling money. It's almost like their vibration and frequency is so chaotic that if money does come to them, they'll get their minivan will break down and they'll have to put in a new transmission, or something will happen that money goes right back out. And I don't want that for
Wow.
people. I want them to believe that if you get into the right vibration, the right frequency, it's almost like a radio station where it's broadcasting a signal. And as the universe picks up on that signal, and I call that infinite intelligence, from the book Think and Grow Rich. Infinite intelligence
Mm-hmm.
says, okay, Dr. Alyssa needs some money, or Trevor needs some money, or Johnny needs some money, or Susie needs some money. So it's really understanding that money is energy and everything is energy, right? And that's where I
Right.
believe that people should really, 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 do themselves a favor and start to really find a money coach, or read a book about money, or listen to podcasts
Mhm.
where it's not a negative, because money has got such a negative stipulation to it, where money
Yeah.
is just a tool for us to live our best
Yes,
life.
it is. And it's a tool that it's no different that you could not build a home without nails.
That's right. Spot on.
You
You're
could
right.
you could not you could not, or anything that would do what nails do, because I guess people would say, well, they build, that's why it's called a shed. That's why it's called a tiki, because it's not a home. When you're building homes, you have to have nails. All right. So we are going to get to flip the script with Coach Trevor here. I just wanted to see a moment when it brings home personally for you. What was one of the biggest identity shifts you had to make to step fully into who you are now, Coach Trevor?
Yeah, well, that's an easy one for me. And it really was going to work with Tony Robbins. And when I went to work with Tony
Mm,
Robbins, I got assigned some pretty spectacular and famous clients, people that I won't repeat their name for privacy. But when you start working with Olympic athletes, or pro athletes, or, some big real estate investors, or family offices, that's pretty daunting for just a guy that literally grew up in the hospitality business and had no formal coaching, program or any of that. But really, what really accentuated that was when I got to work with two billionaires, because my identity is, what value could I possibly add to a billionaire? Right. And that's where, Tony said it's never about, it's about them. And that somebody's got a problem that they're dealing with right now. And if you really think about it, most problems are mindset. And then once you coach through their mindset, you can help them with the potential mechanics or the strategy. And so that's what I did. I went and started working with those very famous people, the, entrepreneurs, the Olympic athletes that have won gold in the Winter Olympics, I'm proud to say, and ultimately these billionaires that I've worked with. And they absolutely loved me and loved my processes and loved my coaching and loved my training, so much that it started to really become my identity, that I could coach anybody, anywhere, anytime, on anything. And that
woo.
was a breakthrough for me.
It absolutely is. I love that. I love that. And today, after all of it, Coach Trevor, how do you define success for you now?
Wow. That's a really cool question. Thank you. And it would be different today than it would have been, say, 15, 20 years ago, where success for me today is seeing my clients win, right? It's seeing them go out there and make more impact, make more income, scale their business, create
Mm.
jobs for people, travel the world, show their kids the Eiffel Tower, or take them down under to see the Sydney Opera House. When I see people living on purpose and with purpose, that's what fills up my cup.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Awesome sauce. And let's just talk about a little bit about who you work with in your programs. If you can share a little bit about that before we do Mindset Bites to go.
Absolutely. Again, I am a high performance, peak performance coach and business strategist. So I love working with entrepreneurs, or, people that are really here to scale. So if somebody's looking to scale their business and they need some mindset help, because most people do, and then they need
Mhm.
some strategy or some, consulting on the other side of that, that's the type of individual that I love working with. And I also have a team of coaches that help other people that might not be ready for me, but they might be ready for a coach to help them navigate the ups and downs of, this crazy world we live in. And for anybody that, would like to hear more about that, we'll share that in just a little bit. But I'm telling you, the world is sped up so fast that if you don't have a coach, you don't have a teacher, you don't have a mentor, you don't have a trainer, you don't have an accountability partner, you're fooling yourself, right? So just like, people can read books and listen to podcasts, that's information, but it's really the application of the information that's important, and then having somebody hold them accountable. What do you think of that?
Oh, absolutely. It's so needed, so needed, so needed. And I love that you have you have tiers and you built an entire organization, I say, of individuals who serve under the model and the principles that you have already. I believe I tell people I have the enterprising mindset. It's
Yes.
one where I can't serve enough people. So there has to be
Yes.
people who are around me that can absolutely, we share the same ideals and principles about human growth, development, and empowerment. And then we just come together and we build a whole village where people can come and get, you know what I'm saying? They can clean out the old and
Absolutely.
bring in the new and just be positioned and put on a roadmap to their success and their freedoms. Love it, love it, love
So
it.
good. So good.
So, Coach Trevor, your 90-second takeaway mindset best bites to go, where you give our listeners and viewers, as if it were your last time to speak to the world, what would you say to them about identity and all the wonderful shifts that they can make? I'm going to step away from the microphone. It's all yours. Here you go.
Well, thank you very much. And I do believe that we're all meant to go big. I do believe that we're all meant to really realize that we're here on purpose and with purpose at this time, because we're meant to go out there and do something that I call, my shtick for life. And that is, we're here to learn, to live, to laugh, to love, to grow, and to share, and to help our fellow man and woman do the same. And I'll say that again. If we're all here on purpose and with purpose to learn, to live, to laugh, to love, to grow, and to share, and to help our fellow man and woman do the same, when would now be a good time to ignite that fire? When would now be a good time to cultivate a strong identity? When would now be your time to step into what is absolutely waiting for you in expansion, rather than, play small or stay in contraction? And I believe that when we do that, can you imagine a world where we were all living on purpose and with purpose, helping ourselves get better, our spouse, our kids, our communities, our families, right? Because as Alisa said earlier, you know what? If we go back to simpler times of living in the village, that's what it was all about. It was helping people. It was the wisdom. It was the shared economy. It was gathering food. It was all of those little things that really made life to be what it is. And I think that if we all condition our identity and to go back to that, I really do feel that there's a whole nother level of ascension for the human race and for all of us to lean into humanity.
So powerful. That is so powerful and well said, Coach Trevor. My goodness, I can't believe our time went by so quickly. I know that this is why we're creating a village for all our guests, and I just believe our season 4 is not necessarily going to be new guests. We don't have room for new guests because our current guests still need to be on this show. I call you all co-host after the first episode. We just where we're digging deeper into, it's like you just can't just spill a little bit. But obviously, you don't have to wait for another episode of Mindset Mastery Moments to tap in with the awesome guests we have. And today, Trevor, can you tell us how we can connect with you? What's your favorite way to connect with us? And what is one of your products or services that you have right now that you would love for our listeners and viewers to tap into? We just want to be a part of what you have going on.
Well, thank you so much. And first off, a huge shout out to you for the work that you do. It's a lot of work to put your show on the air, and your quality of product is absolutely amazing. And I want to give you a shout out. And for all of the listeners that are still here listening to us, you know what? I've done something really special because I really believe that mindset mastery is the key to success. And what I've got for the listener is my amazing mini audio series called Rich Beyond Belief. So for anybody that is not just interested, but committed to learning some of my best frameworks around scaling your business, making more money, getting your time back, really, leaning into identity, I've got 8 mini recordings on a series called Rich Beyond Belief that you can download into your smartphone or into your computer absolutely free of charge. And once you start applying it in your business and in your life, you're going to be able to not just have that linear quantum leap, but that quantum leap forward. And I'm telling you, it's a very, 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 very cool product that usually is reserved for my paying clients. But for your listeners, and today only, I'm going to give it free of charge to anyone that wants it. And to get it, all you have to do is go over to my website, which is trevormcgregor.com/mindset. I'll say it again, trevormcgregor.com/mindset. You'll enter your details and we'll ship it directly to your inbox.
Oh my goodness, that is exciting. You all know I'm getting my copy because there's still so many levels and layers that I'm tearing off as I go through scaling and building what I've been put on this earth to do. And I know exactly when you get to those ceilings and it's like your beliefs, you get stuck right there. I haven't necessarily gone down, but I definitely go to the bell curve and I'm like, oh, it's so high up here. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Y'all know what I'm talking about. It's so high up here. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. If I was supposed to fall, it's going to be really low. So I believe that one of the biggest breakthroughs you're going to have to break through after you've done everything is really shifting your money mindset. And there's levels to it. And you want to make sure that you're clearing out those limiting beliefs. And so who better than Coach Trevor, who has coached 45,000 individuals through success to success, and they continue to go on and be successful after. I'm so grateful for that gift that you bring to us today. That is exactly what you practice, what you preach. You talk about contribution. Yes. And that is, for me, the biggest legacy thing you're going to have is what you were able to contribute. No one ever talks about Steve Jobs because of how much money he made. We don't talk about his net worth as much as we talk about what he invented, the products and the products that he has given time to in his life to ensure that mankind has these things in our hands that make our lives and our world a better place altogether. So that legacy is definitely there. We thank you for showing up at 100% of who you are. This conversation is right here. It's exactly why I'm intentional about who I bring on the show. Not people who just talk success, but people who live it. They have the cost, they've paid the price, they've learned how to do it and do it right to get results. Coach Trevor, thank you so much for your honesty, your depth, and your leadership. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. And Alisa, keep up the amazing work because it's exactly what the world needs more of.
Thank you so much. And I know now you're part of my network, so I have one less where to go when I need my coach out, right?
It's
And
awesome.
to everyone
Anytime.
listening, exactly, to everyone listening, success without alignment will always feel heavy. Growth without identity will always stall. Keep mastering your mindset. Think, speak, do become. We will see you on the next episode of Mindset Mastery Moments. Bye now.